like to spend some time talking about you guys' mini projects, what you're doing, where you're at, and all that. That's more of a sort of a collaborative thing as opposed to a lecture. So we probably won't record that section of it. All right. Questions at this time? Everyone have a good break? All right. Okay. If you remember, the mystery for me of the Doodles application was that if you look at the Doodles view, there is only one paintbrush. All right, actually there's two. But if we look here at the draw event, it's looping through these paths and drawing each of them with the paint line. And my thought at the time is, how come everything doesn't come out the same color then? How come when you change colors, that change color is held? And what I did is, I did a little bit of playing around with this, and I actually saw 3 places where there's drawing being done. And I think by commenting out each one at a time, we can get a sense of what part is doing what. All right. Here's the 3 pieces. We have the on-draw event of this view. All right. And it has 2 parts to it. One is a part where we take and draw the bitmap on the view's canvas. All right? That's the first line. All right? The second line, we're looping through these paths that get set based on our based on our finger tracing on there, and we draw that to the canvas as well for each of them. All right? So that's the second place things are drawn. The third place things are drawn are way down here. Where we draw to the bitmap canvas when we finish a touch. And that just seems a little odd. But anyhow, what we'll do is we'll comment out one at a time. First thing I'm going to do is do this. I'm going to comment. First of all, let's run it the way it is. I know you probably remember, but okay. All right, fair enough. We go and run this. I'm going to look because I need something to write on in a second here, so I probably do. There you go. All right. So our drawing works like this. We go, and as we trace around the screen, we draw. And we can hit the menu and make the line wider and change the color of the line. And as we draw it, the old lines stay the old color they were, and the new lines get the new color. All right? So that's the behavior that we're talking about. Now let's look again and review the 3 places where the drawing takes place. So we'll do this. We'll do this with limited commentary. All right? I'll just do it. We can observe what happens, and then we can talk about it and maybe make some sense from it. All right? First thing I'm going to comment out is this. All right? I'm commenting out in this on-draw event of the canvas. I'm commenting out where we take and draw our bitmap on the canvas. So I'm removing that. And let's see what happens. Okay. So I go and I draw That's good because nothing's happening. All I've done is I went and I set the color to red. Went and set the color to red. Okay, so now watch that happens. I draw a line, there it is, and oops, it disappears. I can draw it, but it doesn't stay. All right, so that was achieved by commenting out this line of code. So let's go and we'll put a comment on here.
And that's 0, 0 there.
That's just the corner of the screen, yeah, the corner of the canvas. So we'll say, when commented out, lines appear, but are not saved. Okay? So when we comment that out, the lines appear, but then they disappear right away. All right? Let's come.
You know what else we can do? We're going to have 4 entry keys.
Uh-huh.
We can do a log of what keys.
Yeah, we could do something like that. Let's comment that out. All right. Now, we'll go and run it with this, where we're looping through the path and drawing the path on the canvas. All right. If we do that, notice what happens. I'll tell you. It's going to be hard. Yeah. All right. Watch what happens now. We draw nothing until, boom, there it is. Kind of the opposite, exactly. All right. So. Well, let's see. I'll bet it can. Let's try. So we'll go there. Then we'll go and we'll change the color to red. Set color. Yeah, you can do. All right. Yeah. Yeah, it is hard to tell, but I'll make it thicker. I think with thicker lines it's easier to tell. Yeah. Okay. So it can distinguish that, all right? But what happens is it appears, but not until we're done and we've lifted our finger. So let's put a comment here that says, when commented out, lines don't appear until finger lifted. Now finally, let's go in and get to the one way down here. This one right here. All right? That happens on the touch-ended event. Okay? So the touch-ended event. So I comment that one out. And let's run it. All right? Now, it appears when we draw it, but then when we lift it, it goes away. All right? So, if we comment this out, Yes. Oh, absolutely.
It's not necessarily the way you would.
Well, I think when we're done with this, we'll understand why the three things are working the way they do to achieve what we want. All right. And to answer your question, yes. The lines appear but are not saved. So yeah, the first and the third one do that. Now let's try to analyze this, and we'll come up with an explanation. Then we'll go back and we'll look at those comments and see if it rings true. All right, if it makes sense, or if we're all wet here. All right. We have our doodle view. And the doodle view is extends view. That does not appear very... Can you see that? Okay, so that's good enough. All right. So, we have our doodle view, which is the view that's on the screen. All right. Associated with the doodle view is a canvas. All right. The way that canvases work, or canvases are associated with either bitmaps or views. So, this canvas here is a canvas that fires off, that we're going to use to draw on the onDraw event. All right? So the onDraw event, when we draw on the canvas, that's going to be put into the view. So if we go and we draw a line like this and draw it on the canvas, that will be placed then on the doodle view.
So onDraw then takes what's in the canvas.
Well, onDraw does whatever we tell it to do. But with onDraw, if we look at the code for this, the wrong one, a little bit further. The onDraw event gets called with the argument of canvas. And the canvas that it gets called with is the canvas that's tied to the doodle view, or whatever the view is. In this case, it's the doodle view. If you remember, when we did the watermarked images, all right, we played with the onDraw event, and what we did is in that onDraw event, we again got a canvas that was associated with our view, and if we drew on the canvas, we were drawing on the view. All right, what we put on the canvas gets put on the view. All right, so that's just the way that the onDraw event works. All right, our onDraw event, we get a canvas, and that canvas, whatever we draw on, gets put on our view. All right. We also have a bitmap, which is called bitmap, I think, cleverly enough. That's different than the canvas. And we have a bitmap canvas, which is a canvas. Now, these two things work hand in hand. Just like the canvas of the onDraw event, is used to draw on a doodle view, the bitmap canvas is used to draw on that bitmap. So the bitmap canvas is used to draw on the bitmap. Now, all right, the role of the bitmap is to remember what happened before. All right, remember the previous drawings, the previous motions that you made. All right, whatever we have drawn before gets put in that bitmap. All right, and by virtue of being put in that bitmap, it doesn't matter if we change the paintbrush then, because if we draw a red line going from here to here on our bitmap canvas, there'll be a red line from here to here on our bitmap. We change the paintbrush to another color, it doesn't matter. That bitmap still has the red line going across. Go ahead.
So it starts out with when you're drawing, it starts out, that information is going to the bitmap.
Right.
Which then gets transferred to the bitmap.
By drawing it on the bitmap canvas, we're putting it in the bitmap. So yeah, that's like one thing. It's not two things.
So that's one action.
That's one action, right?
They're two separate
right,
pieces somehow.
right. Two, yeah, exactly.
So by drawing on the bitmap, the information is transferred from the bitmap canvas to.
When we let's look at this.
I'm just trying to see how many players are involved here.
There's 4 players.
Yeah,
All right. There's the view, the canvas for the view, the bitmap, and the canvas for the bitmap. And think of the bitmap and its associated canvas as recording what's already happened. All right? Because let's go back and remember what this is here. Let's go back and remember what happens when we comment out this line of code. When we comment out that line of code, what happens? The lines appear, but then they disappear again immediately. All right? So here we are with that line of code commented out. We'll go and run it. So, with that line of code commented out, when we go and run it, let's go and change the color to red. Because right now the background is black and the color is black. So we'll go and change it to red so that we can see it. So when we draw it, it's being drawn. But the minute we pull up, it goes away. Why does it go away? Because the way this should work is this bitmap canvas is holding, I'll call for lack of the word, the history. The previous lines and motions. All right? That's what's in the bitmap. And if we comment out this line of code right here, what we're doing is we're not transferring in the previous lines every time we call a draw. So we call a draw, all right, on our doodle view. When that draw on the doodle view gets called, all right, we redraw the whole screen, right? If we don't take and draw the bitmap on the doodle view, we've lost everything that happens before. And that's exactly what we observed. We can draw the line, but when we lift up our finger, it's gone. All right? Because by commenting out that line, we're not taking and drawing the bitmap on the doodle view's canvas, which is exactly what it does. Right. Right. So, what does this one do? I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to pop to the end. What does this line of code do? If you remember, as you observed, this has the same impact when we comment it out.
And not looking at the comment, right?
Right.
Bitmap, canvas, draw, right? Okay.
Yeah.
That would take your actions that you're.
Right. That takes the path that you're tracing.
And put it on bitmap.
Right.
Not on canvas.
Exactly.
And then.
And what the comment says, when comment out, the line appears when drawn but disappears. Why does it disappear? It disappears because we've broken this. We haven't said to draw that. That path contains a list of the points that we've traced. All right? And this command here says take that path that we've traced and draw it to the bitmap canvas.
So in your diagram, then the line actually goes from the bitmap to the canvas, right?
Well, there's several lines here.
No, I mean, on the bottom, you have bitmap canvas on the left.
Uh-huh.
Actually, it's being drawn, being taken from the bitmap and going to the left to the bitmap canvas, right?
No, it's going from you draw on canvases.
Yeah, so is it going from the right side bitmap to the bitmap canvas?
No. No, when you draw, if I go and trace, what I'm doing essentially is when I trace my finger on the screen, it's recording a path. It's recording the points that I've touched. Now, when we're done, when we finally end the touch, it's going to take that path that we've drawn, and it's going to draw that path on the bitmap canvas. And by drawing it on the bitmap canvas, it puts it on the bitmap. It changes the bitmap. Think of the canvas as just the manner in which you manipulate the contents of the bitmap.
So when you're drawing it, where is it going first then on the bitmap?
Well, we'll see that in a second. All right. Let's just observe this. All right. Let's observe what's going on here. When we comment out this line, what happens is that path, which is a set of points stored in some array, when we comment out this line of code that draws the path on the bitmap canvas, all right, when we comment out that line that draws the path on the bitmap canvas, it never gets put in the bitmap. All right? And the bitmap, remember, what's its role? Its role is to be the history. All right? Its role is to be the history of what happened. All right? So, if we trace the path, all right, gets stored as a set of points, but we never then draw that path on our bitmap. So the bitmap never gets updated. And therefore, this line of code
Goes first to the bitmap canvas, the path, as we're drawing it.
No, go ahead.
So in your diagram there, then, while you're drawing that set of points, that path is being stored in the array, and when we see it on the screen, we're actually seeing it on the bitmap.
No. We haven't got to that part yet. All right? We haven't gotten to that part yet. All right? That's all right. Remember, when we comment out this line, and when we comment out that line at the bottom, we do the same. We have the same effect. When we comment out this line, and when we comment out the line at the bottom, we have the same effect. Why is that? Well, because in both cases we're breaking the history. All right? If we comment out the line on the top, we're never taking the history and updating the canvas with it. So this is what happens if we comment out line 1. All right? We're never taking the history of the previous lines and updating the canvas with it. All right? I guess strictly speaking, that should go like this. So if we comment out line 1, if we comment out this line, we never take and draw the bitmap on the canvas. Okay? So we never do this. Right, which again, drawing on the canvas puts it visible, makes it visible on the view. Drawing on the canvas is effectively drawing on the view. It's just that's the mechanism by which it's done. Now, if we Oh boy, let me start over here. Yeah. This is our canvas from the on-draw. This is our doodle view. This is our path, which is a set of points that gets written to the bitmap canvas. Which updates the bitmap. And the on-draws canvas updates the doodle view. And then the bitmap, in turn, this being the history, updates the on-draws canvas. Now, when we comment out line 1, we are breaking that link. All right? So we're drawing the path on the bitmap canvas. All right? But we're never taking that bitmap history and updating the canvas. So that's why it doesn't remember. And remember, there's one more piece that we're missing here, because I could see if something's a little confusing. We have to come back and catch this last piece.
One thing on that, who's populating the path?
Who's populating the path is all our touch events.
Path map.
The path map. That's all our touches are populating that. Yeah. So if we look, if we look, all our touched events are what's populating the path. Okay. All that stuff is populating and keeping track of where we've touched. All right. So when we comment out line 1, all right, we don't take this history and draw it on the canvas. That means every time the on-draw event fires off, all right, every time the on-draw event fires off, we lose what happened before, which is exactly what we've observed. Now, if we comment out line 3, we're not updating the bitmap canvas. We're not updating the bitmap canvas if we comment out line 3. This is line 1. This is line 2. And this is line 3. If we comment out line 3, we're never writing the path to the bitmap canvas. So it never makes it onto the bitmap. So in other words, it's never recorded in the history. All right? Never recorded in the history. Okay? So therefore, that's why it has the same effect. Because, if you think about this, when we comment out line 1, we're updating the history, but never do anything with it. Never refresh it with the history. If we comment out line 3, we're never updating the history, so we can refresh it all we want. It's never changing. It's never updating. All right? So that's why both those two have the same effect. In both cases, we're messing up the history. In the case of 3, we're not recording the history in the bitmap. In case 1, we're recording it in the bitmap, but we're not using it to refresh the canvas. Now, that brings us to the elusive statement number 2. All right? And what its role is. Remember what statement 2 is. Statement 2 is looping through that path and drawing it on the canvas. Okay? And remember what happens when we comment this out. This should look very familiar to you, because this is what you were running into with the circles.
I came about a different way.
Yeah, you came about it a different way. Yeah. All right? Because what's going on here, if we comment out that line, if we comment out that line, we can draw, but it doesn't appear until we let go. Doesn't appear till we let go. So what's going on there? Well, makes sense if you think about it again in these terms. Because with this commented out, when does it get added to the history, the bitmap? It gets added to the bitmap on the touch-ended event. What's the touch-ended event? When I lift my finger off. All right, I've finished the touch. At that point, my path that I've been accumulating gets put to the bitmap, gets written to the bitmap. Okay? To the bitmap's canvas and correspondingly to the bitmap. All right? But as I'm drawing that touch-ended event hasn't fired off yet. All right? So with only lines 1 and 3 in, I'm keeping the history and I'm updating the history, but I'm not updating it until I finish my touch. Okay? So what does line 2 do? What line 2 does effectively is it allows us to see the line while it's being drawn. All right? Because otherwise, we don't put the line in the bitmap until the touch ends. So therefore, when that line is gone, we're updating the bitmap, but we're only doing it when the touch ends. So I can draw, that bitmap is being updated, bitmap's being updated, but the canvas isn't being updated. All right? Oh, wait a minute. Let me back up. My mistake. As I'm drawing, the path is being updated. That path array is being updated. But the bitmap doesn't get updated until I lift my finger up. When I lift my finger up, it's going to take that path of the points that I've touched and draw it to the canvas, which has the impact of drawing it on my bitmap. All right? But it doesn't show it while it's drawing it. So what this line of code does here is this allows us to see it as you're drawing it. Without that, it stores everything in that bitmap. That part works, but we don't see it while we're drawing it. So in this case, what we're doing is we're going in and as we're drawing it, as they are moving through their touch event, every time we touch and we do something, we invalidate it, so we redraw it. But until we end the touch, it doesn't get put in the bitmap. Therefore, we have to effectively duplicate code. All right? Because here we have code. These lines of code go and run for the lines that are currently being drawn, because they're not in the bitmap yet. This handles everything that has been drawn previously. That is, all the stuff that's in the bitmap. This handles the lines that are in the progress of being drawn, because those lines don't get put into the bitmap until we end the touch. Go ahead.
On the diagram, where's the 2 then go?
Okay, the 2?
Yeah.
The 2 goes from, on the onDraw event, the path updates.
So that bypass.
Yeah. So in other words, this update is for in-process lines. This update is for completed lines. Because if we look here at the code, what are we doing there? We are drawing the path on the canvas. What are we doing down here? We are drawing the path on the bitmap canvas. What's the difference? Well, the bitmap canvas only gets drawn to when the touch is ended, whereas the canvas gets drawn to every time a touch event fires off, so it shows the lines that are in progress. So essentially, the reason for all those things is we want to do two things. We want to remember what lines have been completed and display those. That's the purpose of the bitmap and its associated bitmap canvas. But we also want to show the lines as they're being drawn.
So in reality, what's happening then is history is there.
Yeah.
You're drawing a new line, and it hasn't been added to history yet.
Right.
So it's being added live.
It's being added live to the canvas.
Line through second
Right.
segment of code.
Yeah.
And then when you take off your finger, you're done drawing.
Yep.
Then it gets committed.
Then it gets put to the history, to the bitmap.
History,
Yeah.
And the second line of code is no longer in effect because you're done.
Right. And I think if we look in here, after the on-touch event, we reset the path. So we clear out that path so it doesn't get drawn over and over and over again.
So it's kind of like a commit.
Yeah, if you want to look at it that way.
But see, the way I see it, the path map, yes.
No, the path map has the history of the stuff that's currently being done. All right? No, it has what has been done. Here's what's in the path map.
Every time you do a touch, it puts that path map.
Yeah, but it clears it once it's written it to the bitmap canvas.
Well, no, it just clears path. It doesn't clear path map.
Okay, let's see.
Right there, path map that put.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you're adding the path.
Okay.
Where we at? That's in touch started, isn't it? Touch started.
Yes, touch started.
So if you didn't put that line there, that's the same thing would happen. You would never see.
Right.
I don't know what. Wow, interaction.
Yeah.
I don't understand how the bitmap is. Relationship does it have?
The bitmap is a snapshot of all the lines that have been drawn prior to the current lines.
Well, that's kind of like every time somebody draws something, just export. Bitmap is just a bunch of dots.
Yeah.
Just points. Having a bitmap and a path.
What is the purpose of having a bitmap and a path map? Well, again, if you notice,
That's a little smart.
well, no, actually the bitmap is smarter than the path map because the path map is a collection of points. The bitmap is a collection of points with colors and opacity to them. Right.
It's the whole.
Right. But if I'm not mistaken, we can review this if you want. If I'm not mistaken, though, effectively, let's see, what's the relationship between path and path map? Okay, both of these are. Oh, okay. All right, path map is a map full of paths. But we're clearing out. Every time we draw a path, we're clearing it out. Yeah, right here.
No, that's path. That's
Right.
path map.
Well,
You get the path from the path map.
right. But if we clear out the path, it's gone from the path map too, right? You sure it is?
No, because you
Yeah.
said the path map.get
Uh-huh.
line ID.
Right.
The other one's taking that line ID out of the path map. You just got, it's still there.
It's still there, but it's reset, so there's nothing in it really.
You just reset the path.
Yes, you are.
I bet after that path I reset, you can execute this exact function again and reduce.
Okay, how can we test that? Well, let's do this.
Okay, yeah.
Let's do this. Let's move this line. Let's move this line of code here. And it ain't going to be drawing anything.
Oh,
Right.
of course, there won't. Of course it won't. But if you now do path, after that, do path equals path map dot get line ID.
Okay. So I'll put this here again, right?
Now it'll still.
No, that ain't drawing. No. If it does, I'll be surprised, but I've been surprised before. All right, let's go. Disappears. Because it clears that out. That's what the reset does. So that path may be in the path map, but there's nothing in the path. Because it reset it each time. Remember, with an object, you're pulling an object reference. So yeah, this path is a local variable. But the local variable is pulling an object reference to one of the paths that are on the path map. So anything we do to that, we do to the path that's in the path map.
Yeah, that's
Right. So strictly speaking, there might be in the path map a list of empty paths that have happened. All right. So yeah, that might right. Yeah, well, that clears up for me too. All right. So let's see. Let's restore this back to normal.
See, Java is just so different than C++.
Right.
Because C++, that wouldn't do anything.
See, I don't have C++ background, so.
Yeah. I just want to make sure I don't forget, and I set this back. Otherwise, next semester you could check YouTube when I cover this, and I'll be like, "What? It's not drawn. It's not drawn."
Was it option or command Z?
Okay. Right. Yeah, you're right. All right. So, I'll tell you, for me doing that exercise, I didn't do that part of it, but when I did this on my own, I pretty much did that. I went and I commented lines out, and it was like, oh, okay. Not thinking that, it seemed like there was one step too many. All right? It seemed like it was doing one more thing than it needed to do. And the thing that it's doing that it didn't seem like it needed to do is it needs to add it to the bitmap, and it needs to draw what's currently going on. So it doesn't want to add it to the bitmap until you're done drawing it, because every time you move it, you don't want to go and update that bitmap. All right? But by the same token, you want to draw it as you're drawing it.
Yeah, you don't update it until you're done. You take
Right.
it off because
Yeah. And again, and just the overhead with that would be too much. It's just easier just to draw that. Now, here's a question. Here's a question for you. I think I know the answer for this.
so in reality you have to do it this way.
If you want all those behaviors, if you want the ability for it to stay the color that was originally drawn, and to draw as you're going along, yeah. Now again, the way this is set up, you'd have to do it this way. Could you come up with another scheme that was a little different? Of course. Here's a question. Here is a question. Why is that a loop?
Setting all the data points to the line you can draw to that pin.
Assuming you have different lines.
It's actually taking all the points that you have in the path map.
So a path must have the brush.
Well, the paintbrush is here.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
How does it know? And I still don't understand how it knows.
Well, and again, that was what originally caused me to go down this path, right? The reason that this works is because, remember, those are only drawing the current paths, right? The previous paths that got drawn are in that bitmap with their proper color and with their proper thickness of the paintbrush and a paintbrush. So all that history that I've been calling it is in the bitmap. So that loop is only drawing the things that are currently being drawn. All right? Why do you have a loop then? Because you can touch with 2 fingers. You might have 2 paths going on at the same time. So, for example, if I do, and I have no idea where I am, so let me go and rerun this. If I go and do this, if I did not have a loop, it wouldn't draw both of them. I could prove that to us, and I'm thinking of how I could. Well, I have to get one map key. For integer. I could do something like this. Yeah, I was going to do something like that. I was going to do like a mod function on the key. So if key, what's the mod? Is that a percent?
Yeah, well, I don't know about that.
Key mod 2 equals 0. So this should do every other line that I draw, approximately. There might not be anything to see. I got to make sure this works first.
Yeah, I see your mistake.
Yeah. So what I did is I looped through here, and I just put a bit of, not randomness in it, but I'm just doing every other line. So I'm checking if mod 2 is 0. So let's see what happens now.
So if you go 3 lines.
If I do 3, it should do, I guess it depends which the index is. It would either do 2 or 1. All right, so let's go here. Let's run that. And I go 2, only draws 1. Aw, that would have been dramatic.
You want to test it first.
Yeah, I do, but you know, actually earlier on, for the one where we were disagreeing what was going to happen, I was half tempted not to turn the projector on and fade technical difficulties, but I thought, no, that's a Bush League move. Yeah, we're not going to do it. All right, well, anyhow, watch. As I go and draw that, I'm drawing with 2 fingers and only 1 appears. But when I let go, because I don't have that same code in there, all right, it gets added to the history, so then it gets redrawn. If I were to do 4 fingers, I get 2 of them until I let go and all that. So, yeah, that's the key to that, and that's why it doesn't need to know the paintbrush because, again, that's only doing the active ones.
Yeah, you could do that if you want to make sure your users are really testing.
Yeah. I do have to say, at the end of class, I kind of got the idea what was going on, but I'm sure I couldn't explain it, the last class. I knew that it was doing, I had decided, because when I first looked at this, I thought this was drawing every line every time. That's why I'm like, well, why doesn't it show with the current color then, you know? But then, by the end of class, I thought, I'm guessing that just contains the current stuff. And
The comment doesn't even say for each path currently being drawn.
yeah, well, who reads the comments?
It says it doesn't mean anything to me.
Right.
Now it does.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, even like drawing background screen, I kind of thought that was like the background, just the big white rectangle or whatever. I wasn't thinking the background screen really is the result of all the previous draws that the user did.
when I ever have time to go back and reread the chapter,
Uh-huh.
I will definitely, because when I read the chapter, I thought I understood.
Right.
But now when I go back and reread it,
Right.
I understand.
All right.
Well, why then, when you uncommented
Okay, why is it not white? Because I'm not drawing the bitmap at all. The bitmap gets initialized to a big white square. So I don't initialize the view with anything. So therefore it's just a big black.
And the bitmap is always initialized to black, or is that?
No. It just the way this is set up. Either it didn't initialize it or it did somewhere in the code or whatever. But yeah. That's why it did. That's one other subtle difference. It doesn't, it doesn't have that starting point as the big white rectangle. Other questions?
I had a question on what I turned in yesterday with this one.
Okay.
And the assignment was to make the size of the circle or the square
Right.
based upon the length of the
Yes.
So what I know, when I would take the on down,
Uh-huh.
right, to
Right.
capture the amount of time, which is in
Mhm.
milliseconds, and then I had to divide that by
Right.
so much to get
Right.
something that would show up on the screen. It seemed that no matter how long I pressed down, though, I would have the same size.
I'll have to take a look at that.
Am I doing something wrong there?
No, I'll take a look at that. I'll try to see what's going on with that.
Because I thought what you wanted was like, okay, one press, if I hold it down for
Yeah.
10 seconds, it'll be one size. If I hold it down for 10 seconds, it'll be large.
Right. I did at this point. That may be more difficult than I thought it was. I'll go back and take a look at it.
I didn't know if maybe that
Yeah.
would be just a function of working in those.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I'll take a look at that and try to analyze what it is. I guess for the folks watching this, if you just draw circles, if they're not varying on the size, that's fine. I won't deduct for that, but I'll take a look at that and try to identify.
If I change the denominator,
Right, then you get a
then I
gigantic.
But they're all.
Now, your question. The reason I said that the one thing should look familiar to you is, if you remember, your circles don't appear until you lift them up.
Yeah.
All right? Why don't they appear until you lift them up? Because you were drawing them on the bitmap. All right? But you're not drawing them on. You don't have this corresponding piece of code for your circles to draw it directly on the canvas in the event of an on-draw. This.
No, that's there. The reason what was happening with mine was I put my finger down on one spot, right?
Uh-huh.
I lifted up, nothing happened because I wasn't invalidating that.
Yeah.
At that time in my code.
Right.
Where I'm actually drawing that.
There's that problem.
And then when I go to touch another area, then the spot for the first one
Right.
draws.
Right. That's true.
My finger around.
Right. But I guess what I'm saying is the circle doesn't appear immediately when you press on it. And the reason it doesn't appear immediately when you press on it is because you don't have something that corresponds to that. Right. Right. All right. I'm going to wrap things up as far as the formal lecture goes, and then for the last while until we're done, we can talk about our mini projects. Let me call them and tell them to stop recording, and then we can chat about that.